Ever feel like the universe is playing some kind of game, but you don't even have the rule book?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today.
Oh.
We're going to crack open the Anurag Sagar,
Okay.
which translates to Ocean of Love.
Ah.
And it's a sacred text of the Sant Mat tradition. Now, this tradition, it emphasizes inner knowledge. And we're going to look at its really unique creation myth.
You know, creation myths, they're more than just stories. They give us a peek into a culture's worldview, really, how they understand the world, how it all began, and what our place is in all of it.
Right. And the Anurag Sagar, it doesn't mess around. It just throws us right into the thick of it.
Yeah.
With Sat Purush,
Okay.
the ultimate reality.
Yeah.
Often depicted as a king. No surprises there. And then there's Adhya. She's the primordial feminine principle.
Now, Adhya, she's usually shown with 8 arms, right?
3 arms, okay.
And they each represent a different part of her power to create. I mean, what an image, huh? In the Sant Mat tradition, the feminine isn't just nurturing, it's the actual driving force of creation itself.
Yeah. 8 arms. Wow. I can barely keep track of, like, my to-do list.
It's a lot.
But I guess when you're busy birthing a universe,
Yeah.
you probably need a little extra. A little extra help. And speaking of which, the Anurag Sagar tells us that Sat Purush sent Adhya to a very specific place, Lake Mansarovar.
And what's so fascinating is that Mansarovar, it's not just some made-up place. It's real.
Wow.
Like, it exists.
So this myth is grounding itself in, like, actual reality.
Right.
That's wild. It makes you wonder, why Mansarovar? What's the significance of this place?
It's almost as if it wants us to know that the spiritual, the physical, they're all connected.
Right.
Anyway, at this lake, Adhya is given stem samen, which is basically the seed essence needed to actually give birth to the universe.
You know, the seed imagery, it's like this universal symbol, right? For potential, for life, for everything springing forth.
Exactly. But just like any good story, there's a twist.
Oh.
Enter Niranjan, one of Adhya's sons. And he gets a little too, shall we say, carried away by his mother's beauty, and he tries to basically merge with her.
Oh, boy. Talk about a Freudian slip on a cosmic level.
You could say that. So in the Sant Mat tradition, this kind of thing, this going against the natural order, it has big consequences.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Sat Purush actually banishes Niranjan to a lower plane of existence. And this tells us something kind of important. There's a hierarchy, not just of beings, but of entire realms.
Wow. So they're like mapping out the entire universe for us with its own set of rules.
Yeah.
Make sure those rules are followed. Adhya has another son, Dharam Rai. And he is like righteousness personified.
Yeah.
In fact, Sat Purush tells Dharam Rai to swallow Adhya to keep her safe, to protect her from Niranjan, from his like disruptive influence.
Wow. Okay, it's almost like this cosmic tug of war between order and chaos.
Totally. And what gets me is how the Anurag Sagar, he uses these really vivid images, like really intense ones until this story.
Yeah.
We've got swallowing, banishing, multiple births.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
It's definitely not your average bedtime story.
Right. But, you know, we have to remember, these myths, they were told out loud, passed down over generations.
That's interesting.
So they needed that dramatic flair to really capture people's imaginations.
That's so true. But going back to Adhya for a second, earlier we were talking about how she's shown with 8 arms.
Right.
What's the significance of that number? Like, why 8?
So in a lot of spiritual traditions, 8 represents wholeness, infinity, the cyclical nature of time. And it's also the number of directions on a compass, right? North, east, west, and the points in between.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it suggests that Adhya's influence extends everywhere throughout all of creation.
I see, yeah. Exactly. And if each arm represents a different part of her power to create, then we're talking about something really incredible. It's not just about physical creation, it's about creating everything. Energy, consciousness, time itself.
Whoa, okay. That's pretty mind-blowing. But let's get to, like, the big turning point in the story. When Sat Purush creates the genital opening in Adhya.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a kind of shocking image.
It is. But we're talking about a text that's trying to explain how life began duality. The whole cycle of birth and death. And in a lot of ways, this act, while it is shocking, it's also incredibly important.
How so?
Because it's the beginning of sexual reproduction. The cycle of samsara, birth, death, rebirth that we're all bound to. It's the start of the human experience as we know it.
It doesn't sound like that cycle is necessarily a good thing, though. There's this feeling of being stuck, don't you think?
You've hit on a really crucial aspect of St. Matt, this act of creation. While it was necessary, it also binds us to suffering.
Right.
It's through this cycle of desire and attachment that we experience pain, loss, and death.
So is there a way out?
That's where the idea of karma comes in.
Yeah.
And in St. Matt, karma isn't some kind of cosmic punishment or reward system.
Right.
It's about understanding that our actions have consequences. Every thought, every word, every action, it creates ripples that shape not only our own destiny, but the very fabric of existence.
Wow.
So it's about making choices that lead us towards liberation, to breaking free from this cycle of suffering.
So finding a way to transcend all of that.
Exactly. And that's where the St. Matt tradition's emphasis on inner knowledge and finding a true spiritual master comes in. It's about finding a path, a way to go beyond the limitations of this created existence.
Okay.
And to merge back into that ultimate reality, that oneness that existed before creation.
Wow, that's a lot to process. But it's also really profound. And this whole act of creation, it doesn't just happen once, right?
No.
The Anurag Sagar says it happens 3 times.
3 times, leading to the birth of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, better known as Shiva.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most important deities in Hinduism.
Talk about a holy trinity. It's interesting, though, that the Anurag Sagar, while it draws on these familiar figures, it also presents its own unique take on creation.
That's what's so great about these traditions. They're always evolving, reinterpreting, weaving together different beliefs and practices.
Right.
And as we'll see, the Anurag Sagar has a few more surprises in store for us.
Okay, so we've got these 3 acts of creation, each one giving birth to, like, a major Hindu deity.
Right.
It makes you think, what's the point of doing it 3 times? Like, why 3?
Well, in a lot of traditions, the number 3 represents a fundamental trinity,
Okay.
like body, mind, and spirit.
Oh, I see.
It's the smallest number of points. You need to create a plane, like a stable structure.
Right.
So maybe it suggests that even creation needs a foundation, a balance.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just about doing the same thing 3 times. It's about, like, establishing order.
Exactly. And this idea of balance, of everything being connected, it comes up again when we look at what the Anurag Sagar says about vegetarianism.
Right. We talked about that a bit earlier, this idea that eating meat that's connected to what Kal did.
Exactly. Remember Kal's desire for Adhya? That's what starts this whole cycle of birth, death, rebirth.
Right.
The Anurag Sagar is saying that by eating meat, we're kind of participating in that original act of violence
Oh, interesting.
and perpetuating this cycle of suffering.
So it's about recognizing that we're all connected. Like, our actions have consequences, that even something like what we eat matters.
You got it. It's about understanding that we're part of this web of life, this cycle of creation and destruction. And every choice we make, it either keeps us stuck in that cycle or it moves us towards breaking free.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the impact of your actions.
Yeah.
And it feels like really relevant today, don't you think?
Absolutely. The world is dealing with climate change.
Yeah.
We're using up our resources and facing the consequences of our lifestyles. You know, this ancient text, it feels almost prophetic. It reminds us that our choices matter, that even small acts of awareness and compassion, they can make a difference.
That's a good point. So where does this leave us? What are we supposed to take away from this deep dive into the Anurag Sagar and its creation myth?
Well, if I had to put it simply, I'd say it's an invitation to see the world differently, to question what we think we know about reality, the consequences of our actions, and our place in this huge interconnected cosmos.
It's about realizing that there's always more to learn, deeper meanings to uncover, not just in these old texts, but within ourselves too.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by exploring these stories, engaging with these ideas, we can start to change our own perspectives.
Yeah.
And maybe even contribute to a more compassionate and interconnected world.
That's a beautiful thought. And a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive into the ocean of love. So as you go about your day, remember Adhya and her 8 arms. It's a reminder of the incredible potential we all have within us.
It's true.
And ask yourself, what will you create with yours?